This is our second Downsizers Club meeting. The first one was last month, and we talked about paper. And I hope that you all did some sorting through your papers and that information was helpful to you. In typical fashion, I was gung-ho for the first weekend, and I have since slowed down. And I think mainly because there wasn't a shredding event coming up, you know, so you have this deadline ahead of you. But this month, we do have some motivation going for us, a deadline, if you will, in that there will be an e-waste recycling event on October 24th. And so that is why we chose electronics as our topic today, our category. So to talk about that event, I'm happy to introduce Kim Kreiner-Ritchie. She is the Sustainability and Food Systems Analyst for Douglas County. And she has graciously agreed to be here, even though she is out of town somewhere, to talk about the event on October 24th and how that is all going to work and what kind of safety precautions they've put in place so that we can get rid of a lot of our, you know, old TVs and VCRs and clock radios and what have you. So Kim, with that, would you take over, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me to share about this event with you. So the last time that Lawrence had an e-waste event was in 2018. We had a pretty good record of having one twice a year, actually, until then. And then some of our staff capacity at the city had to change. And so we have not had that sought after event in a little while. So some people may be storing up their electronics. I know I am. I've got a pile in my garage ready to go. So this event, we've gotten lots of questions about it. It's really being looked forward to. So basically, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to set it up as a drive-through. It's going to be located in the very big parking lot that's at the corner of Clinton Parkway and Iowa Street. So that big KU, it used to be the old Park and Ride lot. Now I think it's called Lot 301. And we're just going to set up a drive-through going straight through there. So we're going to encourage those who are coming to drop off their electronics not to get out of their cars. You're just literally going to drive through, and individuals will take the electronics, you know, out of your trunk, out of your back seat as you instruct, so that, you know, we're minimizing contact and also really increasing the efficiency of driving through this event. The volunteers there, the staff there will be wearing masks and gloves, and so trying to maximize the protection for that event as well. You will be able to bring, as the vendor that we're working with is called Technic Solutions, they say anything with a cord. So anything, any small appliance, anything that plugs in, anything that's battery operated, you can come and recycle at this event. They'll also be taking some of your outdated media material like CDs, VHS tapes, cassettes, things like that you might have on hand that don't work anymore, or maybe the appliance they went into doesn't work anymore, so you can offload those. What we will not be taking at this event is some of your hazardous waste materials that you might even be expecting to bring. Batteries, household batteries will not be encouraged at this event. If you have larger batteries, you know, car batteries, things like that, you can bring those. But we won't be taking, wait, let me make sure that's correct.
Kim,
Yes,
may I interrupt?
Yeah, absolutely.
I hate to interrupt your flow, but I failed to tell the audience that they can ask questions of any of our speakers, including Kim, by just putting them into the chat, which is the little bubble at the bottom of your screen. In most cases, if you're on a phone, it might be at the top. But you can just type them in, or we will open it up to questions live, if you will, when she's done. Thank you. Go
yeah,
on.
Great. So yeah, so let me get back into the complication I was creating there. So no alkaline batteries, things like that, but rechargeable batteries would be fine, or things like that. And also we can take light fixtures, but not light bulbs. So things that kind of fall into that hazardous waste category. You would want to make an appointment with Household Hazardous Waste to drop off items like that. And we will be providing information on that alternative at the event as well. And I'd be happy to provide that, in the chat or as a follow-up as well, if you have some of those items and are not sure what to do with them. One thing to note is that everything, this service is completely free unless you are dropping off an old CRT TV. That is the only item that there will be a charge to recycle. And so if it's 19 inches or smaller, it's $15 to drop off. 20 inches or greater, it's going to be $30. And that's going to be cash or check only. So if you have that item, just to know to bring cash with you to get that off your hands.
And would you tell the audience what a CRT TV is?
Yes, so it's the old TV that has the big box on the back. So we're not talking about the more modern flat screens, but rather the big heavy ones that you have to kind of lift, with your legs and your arms. That's the kind that is going to take a fee to recycle because of the materials in it takes so much to actually safely take care of.
It's CRT is cathode ray tube. So they're the old tube ones, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And thank you for that, for identifying that acronym for us. So I know that shredding, I heard you talking about paper. Paper was your last event. There have been lots of questions if we'll have shredding at this event. Unfortunately, we will not. So we know that that's a need in the community. Like I said, we've had questions. So that is on our radar, but it's not going to be available at this event this month. I understand that there's going to be someone talking later in the hour about safe data disposal on electronics. Technic Solutions that we're working with, they do have certified staff. They follow a certified safety procedure for wiping all data. And so you'll hear more about that from someone who knows a little more than I about that exact procedure today. But just so you know that any phones, computers, things dropped off are going to go through that process. It's not something you have to do on your own. It's going to be the company that takes care of that. I think I covered most of it. So I guess I'll just leave it and see if there's questions.
Yeah, we have a couple questions coming in.
Okay.
What about CRT monitors? And I assume that means those old tubes, the monitors that went with the old computers. Are those the same charge?
That is a super great question. I have only seen them specify TVs. So I would love to find the answer to that. And if it's possible, could I follow up with, is that an answer we can provide to the group after the fact?
Yes.
Yeah, we will be putting together a resource page as we do after each one of these programs. So we'll link to your website, which kind of outlines all the items that people can bring.
Yes.
And did I read a phrase that said anything with a cord? I mean,
yes.
So toasters that don't work, mixers that don't work.
Yes.
Old stereos that don't work, boom boxes.
Yep.
So not just computers. Okay.
Yes. And I would emphasize small, something you could fit in your car. And I wouldn't, don't try to bring a refrigerator, small appliances that they can stack on a pallet, because they really are trying to fit everything into two semi trucks and get it out of there that day. And they get a lot of stuff. So we're not taking, large equipment, but any desktop, any, tabletop, things like that from your household.
Okay. And we have a question from Diane. How will VHS tapes be handled? Shredded somehow for privacy if they contain faces of children and adults? I.e. personal videos, not movies.
Yeah.
And by the way, we will be talking, Jim Barnes is here from the library, and we will be talking about various ways you can convert your VHS tapes and your cassette tapes, that you can digitize them before recycling. But do you know about that, if they would be shredded, Kim?
That is another really great question. I know they will take them. I have not heard specifics about the processing. So that is another thing I can certainly ask directly, exactly what will happen to those materials.
Okay, so if you'll get us the answers to those questions, and then we normally send a follow-up email to everyone who attended, so we can
Great.
put the answers in that email. Does anyone else have any questions for Kim that you'd like to just raise your hand and ask?
Let's see.
What do we do in case of bad weather? Do we just do it anyway?
Yep, we'll do it anyway. It's some, you know, we actually just had a meeting about it last week and talked about how weather can sometimes, you know, reduce the number of people that come out, but we'll be there. So bring your stuff. Yeah. And then I will add one more interesting item. If you do have those CRT TVs or monitors, as I will find out if those are included as well. We do have a local sponsor who is interested in covering a limited number of those appliances for residents. That those details haven't been worked out yet, and so haven't been made public. But it will be within days that it is, and I'd be happy to include that in your follow-up information. So if you'd like to perhaps get one of those tickets to have your CRT TV covered, we'll be able to provide that for you. It's one of the kind of early audiences for that. So I guess keep an eye out for that follow-up.
And the hours for the event, Kim?
Yes, it's going to be 9 to 1 on that Saturday. And in talking to the vendor who's going to be right there with us, you know, they're going to be taking their electronics right off site. So it's not exchanging any more hands. Technics gets it on site, takes it, handles it safely. We're going to have to kind of do a hard stop at 1. So because their, you know, staff is going to be there from 7 in the morning setting up, and, you know, we've got more cleanup to do. And so at 1, we're going to, you know, anyone who's immediately there in line, we're going to clear them up, but we're not going to be taking anyone else. So try to get there early.
So is there a possibility that we would just bring too much stuff because I have a lot of stuff. I mean, would it be like once their containers are full, would there be a possibility that people would get turned away?
No, you know, that's a really good question, but I don't think so, because they're a regional company. They're not coming from terribly far away. So if it meant that we had to arrange some situation where they had to come back with a truck and get some more stuff, I think there's creative ways to solve it, but we just can't, you know, keep the event going past 1.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a question for Kim before we let her go? And again, if you have a question and you think about it 15 minutes from now, just put it in the chat and we will get that to her and get answers for you, hopefully in a couple of days.
That's great. And my contact information is right on the website. That's been put in the chat as well. So feel free to reach out to me directly, but I'll certainly be following up with the answers to these questions to provide to everyone.
Okay, so it's the 1st and this is on the 24th. So we have 23 days, people, to get those electronics sorted out. I have so many. Okay, thank you so much, Kim. Thanks for joining us. And
all right,
you're dismissed if you want to be, and appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Okay, well, now we have Dave Greenbaum, also known as Dr. Dave. Some of you may know him from around town. He's been making mouse calls in Lawrence since 1990. And he helps people with their Macs and PCs, desktops and laptops at homes or offices, in his office at East Lawrence or remotely. So he's here to talk about how to dispose of your electronics safely in terms of that personal information and financial data that we're all concerned about. And really, from talking to him, I was, you know, it didn't even occur to me that maybe my old fax machine held some data on it that I should be concerned about. So Dave, we're happy to have you here, and you can just take it away. And again, if the audience has any questions for Dave as he's talking, simply put them in the chat.
Great, thanks for having me. So I think, you know, Kim talked about general electronics recycling, and a lot of this, as she said, would pretty much be covered as far as safe destruction and stuff like that at the event. But, you know, it's been a few years since then. You might want to get rid of things at a schedule that doesn't work for you. So I'm going to kind of generally go over some of that stuff. First thing is, please don't throw this stuff in the trash. Kim didn't mention that, but there is lead, there's all these terrible metals that eventually leach into the water table that we have to be careful about. So you might be tempted, if you missed it, I'll just throw it in the trash. It's small, it won't make a difference. It really does. It is vitally important. All these electronics do not end up in our general waste cycle and stuff like that. A lot of these companies have procedures to make sure that the bad stuff is removed from it, things like that. So let's talk about the things that don't have any information on them that you could take. For example, if you don't go to this event, there are places like Best Buy and other places that will take some of these general recycling things. So chargers, anything that kind of those chargers that plug into the wall, they contain no personal data. Keyboards generally contain no personal data. Mice, monitors don't contain any personal information. And finally, batteries. Let me emphasize, batteries are one of the most dangerous things when it comes to computers. If you don't take care of that within a reasonable time frame, they can leak. Sometimes they've been known to cause fire. So it's very important if you leave let's say a laptop computer in the basement, you're like, I'll deal with that at the next time. Please remove the battery because that is a safety hazard. So, because I thought when Kathy said about safety, I was thinking the big picture, not just privacy, but personal safety. So here are some of the questionable items that do contain some personal information, but on a practical level, I tell people not to worry about it. Your wireless router. Your wireless router contains, for example, your Wi-Fi password. Typically, when you get a new wireless router, you go ahead and use that same password. Sometimes the cable modems have that information. If you have the things like the Alexas, the smart, I shouldn't say that because now three people in here, their things went off. If you have smart bulbs, if you have those smart TVs that have, let's say, Netflix in them, those devices do contain your passwords. Now, and the same thing with printers. Printers a lot of times contain your wireless passwords. If you simply send it to the recycling event, there's going to be no association of that wireless password with your home. Your stuff goes, because that was one of the questions that I think was asked earlier. What happens to this stuff? Most of the time, and you can Google some of this, there's huge dumpster-sized electronic shredders, and they just take your computer, throw it in, and it just gets scrambled up into pieces along with your VHS tapes and all that. And then what they do is they have procedures to kind of sort out the precious metals, the plastic and stuff like that. So that way, if something could be recycled, it can be. If not, it's gone ahead and turned into general waste. So they're not going to associate that particular printer with your home. What happens is if you, again, leave it by the curb, which you shouldn't do, but I know people do that, now you've associated that device with your home or something like that. That can be a risk because someone knows your Wi-Fi password. What can they do with your Wi-Fi password? They can get on your internet in their home, which again, all they can really do is use your internet connection or if you have files that are sharing across your network, you're also going to see the person sitting outside. So that's a pretty good hint that someone's using your wireless. Where it actually becomes an issue that I see with clients is even though I, as the computer person, tell you, please, please, please don't use the same password for everything. I know you all do. I know you use that password more than once. And probably that Wi-Fi password is possibly your email password, possibly your Netflix password. Your Netflix password is the same as your Gmail password. Then it becomes a little bit more of a risk because it's sitting out there. And if you're someone I want to get information from, if you're just average Dave Greenbaum here, I'm not an interesting person. I don't know that many celebrities. But if you know who it is, and I give the example, if you're in front of Bill Self's house, you could get information on all the players, stuff like that might be a little bit more interesting. You might have some fun phone numbers or something like that on there. But on a practical level, for most of us, even if someone had that information, it's not the end of the world. So I say, be careful about it. Don't reuse those passwords. But for the most part, those items aren't going to make a big difference. Now, things that do have, Kathy had mentioned, I talked to her about like printers and fax machines. Some of those have capabilities of reprinting things and storing information. So you do have to be a little bit careful about that. Sometimes like some of the very old fax machines kind of have that thermal transfer paper that is actually a copy of everything. Now, I don't think too many of those are around. I worry about doctor's offices and stuff like that with those. The most popular question I get, though, is about phones. So let's talk about the dumb phones. In particular, with phones, we usually replace them because they stop working. And the battery stops working, or you dropped it, or you ran over, you're like, oh, I can't access it, I can't erase that information. Now, we use that same analogy of the fact that there's a bunch of phone numbers and one says mom. People aren't going to be terribly interested in your mom's phone number. Your mom's phone number is probably easy to figure out by Googling it or something like that. It's when you're a celebrity and I can associate your particular phone with what you do in your life, that makes a difference. I remember one time many years ago, I was helping someone with her iPhone and there's Oprah's phone number right there. I'm like, oh gosh, that is so tempting. Got to keep privacy and all that. But I was like, just scrolling through helping her with stuff and there was Oprah. So unless you're that person, probably your phone isn't that interesting. So if it's just sent to the recycling event, or again, it goes to your wireless or your phone provider, that's fine. Smartphones, that's a little bit of the trickier thing. They have pictures, they have a lot of personal information on them. And if they are working, I usually recommend contact your wireless provider. They love talking to you because then they can upsell you on something. So you tell them, I want to erase this phone, and whether it's an Android phone or an iPhone, they do have specific procedures on how to do that. I'd love to give you a blanket statement on how to do it, but it's going to depend on the particular model of phone you have. But I usually tell people, go to your wireless provider. They'll be able to explain it. Most of the time, if you just go in there, they can do it for you. And again, they're going to say, hey, there's a charger, or here's a case. While you're in here, you might as well buy it. So they like getting it in the store. COVID time's a little bit different, but as a general rule, that's true. I'll pause here, see if we have some questions. Yeah, we'll talk about computers. Someone had asked about smoke alarms, and I believe that goes through hazardous waste. Can someone gain access to your wireless printer? If your password is easy to guess, sometimes it's a default password or something like that. I've seen that problem before. So yeah, so as far as recycling phones, I say again, you can donate them to places like Best Buy or something like that does have bins where you can drop those off. I usually recommend though going to your wireless provider. They can usually make recommendations on that. I think that was it. Okay, so we're going to talk about computers. I knew that was going to be the big question. So let's talk about computers. That's the big thing. So if the computer turns on, both Macs and PCs have ways of erasing the information on the hard drive. It's not totally 100%. If, for example, you're a celebrity, or we're talking, you take it to a crime lab, or we have companies that do data recovery, forensic data recovery, there are ways of getting that information back, even if we use the erase procedures on the computer. Again, I go to that practical consideration if you took it to something like the electronics recycling event, because in the past, they wouldn't always guarantee the destruction. For the most part, your computer is put in a big bin, as she said, with pallets. It's thrown in an electronics shredder, and nobody takes the time to look at your hard drive and get that information on there. That's the practical reason. Again, if you left out front of your house and someone associated that particular hard drive with you and thought that you might have something of value, they might look at it. But most of the time, most people are not going to go looking through people's trash, trying to find a hard drive, and then go through hours and hours of procedures just to find pictures of your kids or your bank accounts, because your bank accounts, that's not enough information. You know, that's where we get to the paper shredding and stuff like that. It's part of the practical big picture. Now, if it doesn't turn on, that's a little bit harder because you can't run those erase procedures. So if you go to an event like that's coming up on October and you are guaranteed that the hard drives will be securely erased or shredded, again, you're practically okay. If you're really concerned, you can remove just the physical hard drive, and it's about the size of a cell phone or a deck of cards or something like that. You can then either take it to an event upcoming in the future and you could take the laptop or desktop to other recycling events that don't guarantee the destruction. Or there are companies, usually the manufacturer, Western Digital is a common one for most hard drives. You can get a label and they will actually allow you to ship the hard drive and floppy drives. In fact, floppy drives are interesting. There are some companies online that if you sell them more than a couple hundred, they actually pay you because floppy drives are in demand. They're like nuclear power plants that are still running off of floppy drives, believe it or not. So they're not made anymore. So there's some value in that. There are a huge exception though, and this is a really important one where I would recommend that you don't take it to the recycling event in this case. If you have data that belongs to someone else, you have on your particular field to protect that data. An example is a doctor's office. You are covered by HIPAA. If you take it to the recycling event, you can't guarantee that that information was securely recycled, or excuse me, securely erased. We won't offer a certificate of destruction. There are companies that will do a chain of custody certificate of destruction because you need to, because of your industry regulations, to keep that information on file. Should there ever be a privacy breach of your patient information, you need to be able to prove it wasn't your computer, it was some outside event or something like that. Simply telling someone you erased the hard drive isn't enough. You have to prove it to someone. The other thing that comes into play is FINRA. If you do anything with financial advising, you have to prove that you actually destroyed the information through a chain of custody certified recycler. And then finally, which I think would probably be most important to this group, is FERPA, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Same thing applies. If you have student information on there, such as student IDs, social security numbers, anything like that, you have a legal responsibility to make sure that that information is destroyed and that you can prove it to a third party should you ever be called into question. So that's pretty much what I had. I'm looking through the chat here. Someone asked, what if a person wants to sell or give their old computer to someone? Again, I would do that procedure within the software, whether it's Windows or Mac, of how to securely erase things. Both the newest version of the Mac software, really the past 10 years has had that capability where you can just delete a user account and it's securely erased. Or Windows 10 in particular gives you an option of erasing it completely. That's hard to go through on a seminar like this because it depends on your computer and stuff like that. But as a general rule, you have the ability to do that. Now, we also, for example, if you miss the event or something like that, we work with a recycler in Kansas City called Connecting for Good, which will attempt to try to use the computer for a low-income family. If they can't use it for that, they go ahead and use a ethical recycler. It varies by situation of who they use, but it's always someone within the United States, so it's not sent off to the third world or something like that. And we will, if you're just donating it, we erase it at no charge for people. So as far as, and there's a good question about CDs. So if the CD is one of those that you purchased from a company that wasn't burned, you can go ahead and just shred that. And there's actually, usually places that do paper shredding will also do CD shredding. If it has your personal information, I would go ahead, if you have a lot of those, go ahead and use an electronic shredder. There are paper shredders out there that also include CDs. Or you can break it in a few pieces and make it into an art project. At that point, again, it's not associated with you, so the idea of a breach is really unlikely. Most of the time, CDs that are more than 5 or 10 years old aren't readable anyway. But if it's just software that came with the computer, you can go ahead and do that. I believe I didn't notice on the event for the recycling whether they do CD shredding or CD recycling. I think it said something about some media like VHS, so I assume you could do it through there. Again, if it's not associated with you now, if it does say, hey, this is Dave Greenbaum's 1999 taxes, I'd probably break the CD in a few pieces and take that part off and throw it in the trash. But otherwise, if the information can't be associated with you, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Kathy, are there any questions that I've missed? I'm kind of looking through the side here.
Well, we have one. It looks like this one might be for Kim. Will the recycling event take an old iPhone? Oh, and Kim went away just briefly.
I'm assuming they usually do take any type of phones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Most of them do. You know, there are places that you can donate those individually. I know, some of the shelters and stuff like that will take phones. But as a general rule, if you're ever concerned about private information or something like that, if you donate it, something like that, that you haven't erased to an organization will track that, and you run into a little bit more issues with privacy if you aren't sure about it. So an anonymous event like this, I think if I'm the least bit concerned about privacy, I'd prefer to do that and then leave it up to the recycling company if they can find a use for it.
Yeah, and I think too, it's a good idea, just especially even when we're not talking about computers, but if you have electronics that work, don't forget our thrift shops and not-for-profits that welcome those either for resale or to donate to people in need. So I mean, not everything we have and are not using is broken. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. If you clear information on iPhone, will your photos on iCloud be erased?
That is a great question. So the way it's asked, the answer is no, but let me explain here. If you do any type of erase procedure, whether it's on an iPhone, an Android phone, or a computer, and you actually do the secure erase procedure, that erases absolutely everything from the device. Now, what some people do is they're like, oh, well, I'll just go ahead and manually delete stuff from my phone or from my computer because there's not that much stuff. I'm just care about these photos. Well, in that case, depending on how your computer's configured, it might actually delete it from iCloud. So I've seen that where you've got Dropbox or something like that, where people delete things off their computer, not understanding fully how things synchronize, and they're actually deleting it from the cloud. So that's why I recommend following those secure erase procedures for two reasons, because if you delete those photos and that's all you delete, someone could relatively easily get that back if you donated the computer to someone. So a common thing is, well, I'm just gonna delete my personal information and give it to my son for college. Well, your son for college has another problem, and like, I'll be in a situation where someone accidentally deletes something from a computer and we have software that will help remove accidental deletions. And then we're doing that and we find other people's information on there. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, who's this? I'll say to the client, what is this information? You didn't mention this. And they're like, I don't know whose it is. And sometimes it's embarrassing stuff. So I wouldn't delete the information off the device. I would run whatever erase procedure you have on the device.
Okay. Are there any more questions for Dave before we move on? Okay. Dave, just hang out if you will, while I introduce Jim Barnes to tell us about a really exciting program offered by the library, a new program. Jim is the Sound and Vision studio manager at the library, and his background is in percussion and audio engineering with a specialty in audio mixing. But helping people digitize their cherished photos and videos is one of the most rewarding aspects of his job. And today he's here to talk about the library's new collection of AC tools. And this is for those of us who have hesitated to get rid of our VCRs or any tape player for that matter, because we have all these tapes. We have boxes and boxes of home movies and you know, band concerts from high school and school plays and even audio cassettes. And so Jim's going to tell us about a way to digitize those before we get rid of them, so we can get rid of our VCRs. So Jim?
Hey everyone, Thanks for having me. I've got a little presentation I'm going to share with everyone so that you can kind of see some of the tools that we're going to offer here. We're introducing at the library what we call the AV Tools collection. And so right now the Sound and Vision Studio is unfortunately closed because of the pandemic. So we typically have access to some digitization services here at the library. You can digitize cassettes and VHS tapes and slides, but now we're going to begin checking some of those items out. So you can actually take those from the library and bring them home and use them at your own pace at home. So I'm going to show you a few of these things here and share my screen just a moment. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so there's the nice title screen there. And so, yeah, I just wrote a little blurb this afternoon for the website because we're putting it on the website today, and it should be available in about a week or so, hopefully. But yeah, you can preserve your memories and make new ones, digitize your VHS and audio cassettes, scan film slides, record audio and video, and it gives you the tools to capture what's important to you. And so one of the important things to know about this collection as we first launch it is it's going to be checked out on a holds only basis. We kind of need to get used to exactly how we're going to check everything and make sure that everything works and everyone, like we were just talking about, everyone's data is erased when they return the items to the library. So right now we're starting off a little bit of a test run where we're starting off and having to do with the pandemic. We're going to start off doing a holds only checkout process. So to check out these items, you'll check them out using the website, and you can come pick them up from the holds shelf once they're ready. And so if you have any trouble doing that, you can actually come into the library and we can put them on hold for you as well. So the first thing that I think people are going to be pretty excited about that might be the most popular is our VHS digitization kits. We're going to have 4 kits total. So 2 of the kits are going to have a VCR player and this picture you see here, this little USB adapter. So you can plug a VCR into your computer. And it comes with a software. Well, all of these kits, or most of these kits, have a custom user manual that I've made to try to make it as easy as possible for people. Because I know that that's one of the biggest hurdles for people is if something is a little intimidating or they don't know exactly how to use it. So I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for everyone to use in our community so they can not be intimidated or and they can use it successfully. So when you plug the VHS into, I'm gonna go back one slide here. When you plug the VCR into your computer, you can download a free software, and it's very simple to use. And you press a record button essentially and press play on your VCR, and you record your VCR tapes into your computer. So when you do that, you have to actually wait the entire time while your VCR tape plays into your computer. So it's actually going to be really nice that you can check these out because you can work at your own pace. Usually before, you'd have to sit in the Sound and Vision Studio and do it, which is a little inconvenient sometimes because it can take 6 hours if your tape is 6 hours. So they're going to check out for 2 weeks, and you can work at your own pace at home. And so the next item that we're going to offer is this little slide scanner. We're going to have one of these to start off with, and it will scan, most commonly what we see is 35mm slides that people need to scan, but it'll also scan other film types. It says here on the screen 126, 127, 110 film slides. Those are a little less common. We don't see a lot of that, but 35 millimeter slides I know people have a lot of. And it'll also scan film negatives as well as 8 millimeter and Super 8 film and microfiche. Now, I will say this little scanner is pretty simple. It's not a movie digitizer. It is it scans and produces JPEG still images. So the way it works is you feed your slides and your film through it one at a time, one image at a time, and it creates photographs. We do actually get quite a bit of interest in reel-to-reel film digitization, like 8 millimeter and Super 8 and gosh, VHS-C and all the different types of camcorders that are out there. We're really working on getting some of those original camcorders and maybe even the reel-to-reel digitizers for people as well. But right now, in this first iteration of the collection, we're going to have just this small slide negative scanner. And these are all pretty easy to use. We're trying to get the products out there on the market that are as easy as possible to use so that you don't have too much trouble with it. The next item is a little cassette digitizer. These are fairly simple. You just put your audio cassette into the player and plug them into your computer with a USB cable. And what you do is you download a free software called Audacity, and you set a couple of settings and press record on your computer, and then press play on the cassette, and it'll record into your computer and make a digital MP3 or a WAV file. And again, this will include a custom user guide as well. We're also going to offer a little Zoom handy recorder here. This can be really nice for recording music or spoken word if you want to do any type of audio project. A lot of smartphones can record pretty nice audio nowadays, but this will record in stereo and record a higher quality than a phone will. So we're actually about to have a program from the Sound and Vision Studio in a few weeks where we show you how to record sounds in nature. Like some musicians, they like to go out and record, they call them found sounds, where you record a car going by or the sound of birds or the sound of water, and you can incorporate them into your music. So you could use this kind of recorder to record outside or inside, really whatever you like. This little device is a video camera. And what's exciting about this is it's really nice for oral histories and also recording music. It's a little camera, kind of like the one in a lot of phones. But what's nice about it is this little camera is super easy to use. Just a few buttons on the back. Doesn't have a lot of menus. It's just a record button, a play button, and a couple of settings. And you can just sit it on a table and it captures really nice audio, and you can use it for whatever you like. Any questions so far? I've got my screen shared so I can't see the chat.
Oh, well, let me tell you, I'll go ahead and we do have one from Jean Klein. What if you have a PC and a VCR and cassette player in different rooms? In other words, do you need a laptop to connect?
One moment. I'm going to unshare my screen real quick.
Okay.
Let me see if I can see that question.
These are all hardwire connections, right? So you do need to hardwire each device into your PC one at a time.
So right now, all of these are meant to plug into your home computer. We're going to expand this pretty soon, hopefully. And one of the first expansions that I want to get is like the cassette player. They make a version where you can plug a USB flash drive right into the cassette player and digitize straight to a flash drive. That could be cool because you could do that without having a home computer. But right now, I think all of these, for the most part, plug into your computer. It's a little hard to answer because they all work a little differently. Some of them you don't, like the slide scanner, you don't actually need a computer to use that. It actually saves to an SD card inside of the scanner. So you could just use that in the living room without a computer connected, and then it saves all of your files onto an SD card, and you can transfer them to a computer later. But as far as the VCR and the cassette, yeah, you just need to plug these devices into your home computer, and then you can digitize your tapes.
So John wants to know if we can email you and you tell us what we need to borrow.
Yeah, yeah. I know
that's a great idea.
Yes, definitely. I know there's going to be a lot of questions with the specifics of these, just with any technology. So for sure, yep, I can put my email in the chat to everyone here.
What is an SV card?
Sorry, an SD card. It's just
card.
It's just a little memory card. It's kind of like a flash drive, like a USB flash drive. Most of the time it's used in cameras. So a lot of people aren't really familiar with them. But the little yellow slide scanner that I was showing you, it actually has that in the back that it saves the pictures to. So.
On the slide scanner, can you preview them first before deciding whether to scan them, or is it done automatically?
Yes, you can. You kind of look at it, you feed it through the machine, you look at it, and you can actually adjust the color of it if you want. And then you hit, I think it's like scan and OK to save it. And then you feed another one through, hit scan, OK to save it. So it's a little bit of a manual process, and that's what's nice about being able to check it out and digitize at your own pace at home.
And I would also think that with video, I mean, I don't know about you, but my home movies are 2 hours of, a lot of nothing, and there may be 15 minutes that I want to save. So the equipment allows you to sort of scan to the clip that you want, right? And then record and turn it off and edit, sort of editing on the run. Kind of. Yeah.
Yep, you can definitely do it that way. Honestly, another way to do it is, instead of editing it as you put it in, is just to let it run. And then you can cook dinner or whatever you want. And then you come back and you'll be left with let's say a 4-hour video file. And once it's digital, you can just scan very quickly through it by dragging your mouse. And then you can just see exactly what's there and keep what you want, or you can trim it using the little software that's provided, or use another movie editing software if you want to get a little bit more in depth.
Let's see. Can negatives be changed into positive images?
I think that is what, so there's actually a little chart that I almost showed you all. This little scanner, this particular scanner will scan positive slides, like the kind that are in the little cardboard, and it'll also scan negative film. So it'll scan both types. So I assume that's what the question is. It would be turning that negative film into a positive image. And so it'll...
Well, and Maggie asked, how do you convert from negative to positive? So do we have the capability of doing that, or is that another process altogether?
I think that'll work. I actually haven't tested that because I haven't had any negative film around the library to test that with, but it'll scan both positive and negative film.
And then what about beta? Can we digitize from beta? Or
I don't think so right now.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm interested in, getting everyone's suggestions about what are the most needed forms of digitization, because there are a lot of formats out there.
Okay.
You mind if I show you one more slide?
Go ahead.
Okay. So these are a little less exciting, but we'll also have a DVD drive and a floppy disk drive, like we mentioned earlier. Those can get kind of hard to come by sometimes. So we're going to have those available for checkout should anyone need that. And lastly, I was going to ask, like we were talking, what else people might like, because as you can see on the screen, they make reel-to-reel film digitization machines and tape decks. And I think we're going to start off by expanding with some USB microphones so people can record music and spoken word at home. But we were originally going to offer reel-to-reel digitization like the device you see at the top there, but at the library only, because it's probably going to be a little bigger to check out and a little harder to use probably. But we might check that out. If there's enough demand, we might acquire one as well.
And
that's about it.
Deb wants to know, can you choose where to save the video, like on a flash drive or external hard drive?
Depending on which machine it is, yeah, you can always, they all work a little bit differently, but you can always either, once you save them, you can transfer them onto your computer and put them wherever on your computer you'd like, or to an external hard drive, or once you save the file onto the SD card in the device, you can transfer them to your computer and put them wherever you'd like.
Okay, and Gracie wants to know, how soon and where do we go to place a hold on this equipment?
Like I said, I'm hoping it'll be next week that we'll have it available.
And you go online or call?
Yep.
Okay.
We could place a hold on it over the phone for you. Typically, when we were already planning on releasing this before the pandemic, we were probably going to have people come maybe to the tech desk downstairs and check it out there. But now that the tech desk is upstairs in the auditorium, and everything has kind of gotten shifted around, and we don't have the same staffing and the same storage really. There's not a lot of areas in the auditorium to store all of this and check it out from there. That's why we're starting with the holds only. But if you call, you can get transferred to the tech department, and we can check it out for you or place a hold on the item over the phone.
So since you were talking about this before COVID, you expect this to continue after COVID?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the question.
I get a lot of questions in the Sound and Vision studio if we offer checkout of items. And so far we haven't been set up to do that. And so that's been part of the process, is getting just the right item that is the most user-friendly and kind of compact and doesn't have too many pieces, kind of finding those items out there that are really suited for home use.
Okay, Jean wants to know, is there a way to digitize old Rolleiflex slides that are in glass?
I don't know. I do not know the answer to that one. But I'm going to add it to my list, because I get questions about different types of old slide and film formats all the time. And I'm not familiar with this one personally. Dr. Dave might be, but we don't right now. But it's something we could look into.
And let's see, where is it on the library's website? Are they in the catalog, this equipment, or on the Sound and Vision page?
Good question. It'll be in the catalog under AV Tools.
Okay. Okay. And I think, Angie, how long can you check it out for? You said 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Yeah. Really good project for the long, cold winter coming. Okay. I don't see.
There's a question about turning albums into digital.
Oh yeah, a gizmo to turn vinyl into digital would be nice. Those are out there, aren't they? Yeah.
Yep, that's actually on the list for expanding. Again, it'd be a whole turntable. They make USB turntables where you take the turntable and you play it into your computer, and it's kind of the same process. You play the record and it records into your computer.
Yeah.
And so if there's demand for that and people want that item, we can definitely look into. Okay, I see some hands.
Okay. I think that's, yes, we need that. I think Jean's saying, yeah, let's do that. Okay. Yeah, and I will say next month we will be talking, or the topic will be what's your stuff worth? You know, which really we'll be addressing antiques and those collections that a lot of people have, but we will be talking about vinyl at that point. You know, those vinyl albums that a lot of us have. So we will be addressing that next month. And that date is, let's see, November 5th, Thursday, November 5th at 4 p.m. Let's see, we've got a new message. Bobby Goldsboro, says Kathleen.
Is that worth anything? I don't know.
I don't have Bobby Goldsboro. No, I don't. I know you do.
Just asking for a friend.
Well, let's see. Oh, Susie, I'm sorry. Sorry for the persistence. Oh, she's back on smoke detectors. Okay, we didn't get that one answered. Where can smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors be recycled? HHW will not take them because there is radioactive material in them. Kim, are you still here?
She left.
She left. Does anyone from the audience know? Because I do not, but that's one of the things we can look up for you and send with the follow-up. So we can do that research unless someone knows and wants to just raise your hand. So Susie, I will find that out for you and we will put it in the follow-up. I did want to mention two other resources. There is a company in town, and I spoke to the young man who runs it. It's called Matty D Media, and they do transfers of VHS, tapes. Let's see. Yeah, so this is, they do the same thing that Jim's equipment will do, but they just do it for you for a fee. And he said it was $5 per half hour of footage. So if you don't want to take the time, or you don't feel technically savvy enough to handle that, there are at least one company in town that will do that for you, and that will be in the resources too. There's also an organization called Lake Mary that one of our boot camp participants told us about. And let's see if I can, and this is an organization that will take your electronics any old time. You just have to get them there. And because they don't have an outlet in Douglas County, but there are some in Miami and Johnson counties. And I will show you the website real quick. But it's called Lake Mary Business Solutions, and it provides jobs to people with disabilities, not unlike Cottonwood, I would imagine. And so they do e-recycling. They clean the devices to eliminate risk of information exposure. They do shredding, and that's another option for people who, you know, if you can't get everything done before the October 24th event, then they're open all the time. And so we will put that information on our website as well. So is there any other questions from anybody about anything electronic? Oh, what about external hard drives in this recycling event? Do I understand that in the October event, everything will be shredded? That's what I understood. Is that what you understood, Dr. Dave?
Yeah, that's pretty typical. They will just go ahead and throw it in that shredder and then melt it down. Metal's going in one direction, plastic's going in another. So yeah, you should be fine. Again, even if it doesn't turn on, you can recycle that. Yeah,
okay. And again, we'll put all this in writing and send it to you by email as soon as we can get it all together. So I just want to thank you all for coming. We do have a coffee group tomorrow morning at 10. And if you would like to get the Zoom link to that, we just sit around and talk for an hour every week on Tuesday about anything and everything. So if you'd like to join us, we welcome you. So just let us know. And other than that, unless there are any other questions or comments, we will adjourn.